So I didn't exactly have a typical childhood. Every 2 years or so, it would be a different city, a different group of friends, a completely different home. The US, England, Norway, China, and eventually India. But as I moved around, I came to realize an underlying truth about my life. I am what people call privileged. But privilege shouldn't always be talked about in a negative light. In fact, tonight, I want to share with all of you how privilege gave me the power to help elevate the people around me. So to get started, let's take you back. I grew up in the US, England, and Norway, largely sheltered from the harsh realities of the world. And I took my comfortable life for granted. In 2011, I moved to Beijing, China, where this bubble popped and I saw a drastically different world in front of me. Families shared shacks in severely underdeveloped communities just minutes away. Men cycled tens of kilometers through the Beijing smog to get to work. And here and there, I'd see children running on the streets barefoot. The situation was even worse in Mumbai, India, where millions of people lived in slums just kilometers away from Mukesh Ambani's 27-story home. This stark dichotomy was eye-opening to me. It made me appreciate the privileges I had, from living in decent homes, to having loving parents, to attending awesome schools. But more importantly, it also bothered me. I began to really consciously understand that just being born in a certain family or in a certain place puts you on a drastically different trajectory. And this realization kindled a strong urge in me to help elevate others. So I thought about how I could do that, and the most obvious way to me was through community service. So in Mumbai, I started volunteering at an NGO that helped to educate underprivileged children. So day one, I arrived at this worn down building with a small sign above the ground floor entrance reading Asha for Education, the name of the NGO. I got out of the car and I walked into the building and was shocked. The center was basically the size of a small apartment, no bigger than a 4-bedroom suite in Charles Commons, for instance. Forget watermarks or chipping paint. The walls looked like they had been beaten with a hammer. And there were only 2 teachers there, both of whom also lived there to teach full-time. 50 or so children had been crammed into 2 20 by 15-foot makeshift classrooms, and they sat there on the ground in their starched school uniforms in the summer heat. They sat on the ground because there were hardly any chairs, and very few desks for that matter. And in their notebooks, many wrote with pencils that were probably too small to be sharpened. And I couldn't believe it. I mean, just think about it. Here we are in the 21st century, and in a city like Mumbai, India, kids didn't have pencils. Kids didn't have access to pencils to write with. And it made me sad. But when these kids looked at me, they had smiles on their faces, and they greeted me with excitement. Hi, Bhaiya. Bhaiya meaning elder brother in Hindi. So when I introduced myself and told them that I'd be teaching them English regularly, they were excited, they were thrilled. There was this one kid in particular, Rizwan, who he had this sheer determination to learn as much as he could. I remember every time I would go to Asha, Rizwan would be standing at the door waiting for me. He would come up to me and shake my hand or give me a high five and try greeting me in English. I remember this one time, he came up to me, he ran up to me, and he told me, Yash Bhaiya, yesterday I watched Fast and Furious in English. And he was so excited. But all I can remember thinking is, this kid is doing everything in his power to learn as much as he can. Attending a municipal school, Rizwan didn't have the opportunity to learn English well, and the teachers at Asha could hardly speak English either. When I came along, he suddenly had a chance to learn, and he wanted to get as much out of me as he possibly could. And it dawned on me that my education and experiences had put me in a position to inspire and motivate Rizwan and others like him, and support them in achieving their goals. But I also realized that I wasn't unique in this capacity. So many people, from the other kids at school, to my neighbors, to the shop owner of the small stationery store down the street, all had unique privileges and experiences that could be leveraged to help these kids. Privilege, as we know, puts us in a position of power. For many of us, we were fortunate to start off with certain privileges, often owing to our parents' hard work. For others, this power could be gained through the opportunities offered to them by the people in their community, such as teachers and mentors. But for all of us here tonight, we have gained incredible power through our efforts and perseverance that have led us to where we are today. Just think about it. We are here at Hopkins, a top 10 global university. Now, let me who cares about national rankings, right? So we have access to so much. Now let me ask you a question. How many of you are taking advantage of all the resources that we have here? And how does that translate into helping the people around you? Everything we learn, the physical resources we have, the experiences we collect, the networks we build, all of it can be leveraged to help others climb up. That's the key. Your power can be shared. You just need to offer your hand. But I know, all of this is easier said than done. I remember when I got into Hopkins, I thought, wow, I'm going to the Johns Hopkins University. I was ecstatic. I told myself that I'd do everything from awesome research, full disclosure, I'm your typical pre-med, to community service, to maybe working on a startup because, why not? But probably 3 weeks into freshman year, I became lost in the noise of stress, work, and other commitments. And all the reasons that had excited me about coming to Hopkins seemed to have faded away. Hopkins no longer seemed special. It was just a fact of life. And with this change in attitude came a loss in perspective. I lost sight of what it is that I had access to and what that enabled me to do. And it's easy to forget to look beyond yourself. I was certainly guilty of that. And that's why it's necessary to really take a step back and recalibrate. I had to remind myself, take a step back. And I urge you to do the same. Regard the city, observe the people, and consider your place in all of this. Get out of the Hopkins bubble and go speak to someone you've never met before. Ask yourself, how are you contributing to something greater than yourself? And in the process, how are you enhancing the lives of others? So far tonight, I have talked about my experiences through community service, but the way that I approached it is certainly not the only way in which you can support others. I encourage you to find whatever it is that you are passionate about and pursue it, but in the process, elevate others. If you are passionate about computers, then go out into your community and help the unemployed become computer literate so that they can get jobs. If you love writing, go teach kids how to express themselves so they can have a voice. If you're like my younger brother and you're perpetually hungry and all you can think about is food, then go eat to your heart's content. But at the same time, do work that helps somebody else have a decent meal too. If I'm going to be completely honest, I probably learned more from Rizwan than he learned from me. He showed me the power that I have, and I hope tonight I've been able to convince you of the power that you all share too. So here's my note to self. Never forget the power that you have and use it to help the people around you. Thank you.